Hello and welcome with me, Lee. I never really wanted to talk in depth about Macklemore. I got a recommendation a while ago from a friend I admire wanting to hear my viewpoint, but I never filmed anything. But then I was just thinking about how all the old rappers are dead or old and rich and useless. Black hip-hop and rap just isn't the thing that it was in the 80s and 90s anymore. We can't expect a Tupac record about how we got a black president, but we paid for it in blood and fear. I thought now we have white boys making millions rapping about how good they have it compared to the black man, and how it sucks that blacks are so bad off in our society. And then we have black activists, on the ground black activists, praising it like it's something profound and not a white boy selling white guilt to a white audience. That is not a black record. None of those are black records. They're Macklemore records for other Macklemores to listen to. This is a white product. Business. And I listened to the song White Privilege 2 7 times before I began writing this video. And I also read every tweet and every article that I could find about Macklemore's interactions with racial issues. So don't start with me. For those of you who don't know, Macklemore is a white rapper from Seattle, Washington. His claim to fame was a very catchy single called Thrift Shop, which detailed the joys of looking amazing without spending more than what you need. It was a sort of criticism of the lavish aspects of hip-hop culture. It's cute. Doesn't apply to houses though, I guess. He also had another hit, Same Love, which I pretend never happened. Macklemore is mostly well received by white audiences, but has been dogged with complaints of appropriation by some black audiences. He just released a new single called White Privilege 2, which explores his involvement in the Black Lives Matter protests, and also acknowledges the discomfort that comes with activism while resting in a place of tremendous privilege. Now let me say this plainly. The black community is the beaten dog of America. It is the only race whose only purpose for coming here was to serve another race. Natives were also enslaved, but we had another reason for being in America. We were already here. Blacks were brought here to be slaves. That kind of history is a hell of a burden. And the part that white racists of the time played in that isn't always lost on white people of today. Generally, when white people come to see and feel that burden, they feel really bad about it. Although that origin is not their fault, they find that they've unknowingly perpetuated that oppressive status quo. Most people are good people. They don't want to feel like they've done something to hurt someone else, knowingly or unknowingly, directly or indirectly. So, they try to make up for it. That's white guilt in action. And that's how you get people like Macklemore. Macklemore is the physical embodiment of white guilt. Well, him and Matt McGorry. Let me leave him alone. I take it back. First of all, white people, actually Macklemore, I'm just gonna address the remainder of this video directly to you, so come here. Macklemore. My dear Macklemore, you cannot make up for what your ancestors did by being a super advocate. It's not gonna work. I'm not saying specifically your ancestors because I don't know who they are or what they did, but there were people then that were evil in a way that we can barely comprehend, who did unspeakable acts to people who did nothing to deserve it. And what they did will be a stain on your existence and the existence of everybody who looks like them, probably forever. Everything in this country was built on the backs of slaves and the bodies of natives, and nothing will ever, ever change that. This country is a manifestation of white supremacy. But let me hit you with some history to take the edge off, because I can feel the salt starting to rise. But really think about this for a second. When asked about the long-term effects of the French Revolution, the former Chinese president Zhou Enlai said that it was too soon, to tell. That was in the 70s. The French Revolution ended in 1799. That was almost 200 years before he was asked that question. Slavery ended in the United States in 1865. That was 150 years ago last year, and blacks did not get equal legal rights, so-called equal legal rights in the United States until 1968. My mother was 4 years old when that happened. Additionally, Congress didn't fully acknowledge the United States' involvement in slavery and racial discrimination and apologize for it until June 18th, 2009. To me, with that acknowledgement, the explicit government-sanctioned oppression of the black race ended. To me, that was the end of our French Revolution. Mind you, I said explicit and government-sanctioned oppression. That's just a moment when Congress admitted that black people are and were always people, regardless of what the law said at the time. Now that blacks are considered people retroactively, that's a starting point for other conversations. By the way, the Native Americans received their apology in 2010 in private at a DC cemetery. But I'll talk about that in another video. Anyway, by Joan's measure, we won't be able to look back on the disaster of black civil rights and equality until 2259, at least. I won't live to see an America where Mike Brown and Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland stand as embarrassing footnotes to a larger story about the triumph of black America over the chains of racism and slavery. I won't live to see that, and neither will you. Rap. Rap is the auditory manifestation of black history. Often, it's the only telling of black history available. It was begun in Africa and brought to America by a group of men called griot, who used rhythmic chanting and drumming to tell a story and preserve history in the oral tradition. When West Africans were taken as slaves, they brought griot with them to the cotton fields. And through black ingenuity and passion and talent, it made its way to the radio, where people who had never met a black person before could learn about our lives and learn that there was another world within America that they never imagined, where people who had dark skin could never be safe. White America eventually responded, and they sympathized. And since white opinion reigns supreme, rap was able to make its way into the boardrooms. There it made some of us very, very rich. But it was also then guided by white corporations, where it was eventually deemed safe enough and became capable of being wielded by white people. Just like you. Listen, as much as you may like rap, Macklemore, and as much as you may have a genuine talent, and I think you do, you only have access to the passion, the heartache, and the wonder of rap and hip-hop because of racism and slavery. You are only able to access rap because of white supremacy. Your entire career, every molecule of it, is created by the will of white supremacy, shaped by the strong hands of white supremacy, and wrapped in a white supremacy bow and laid in your white lap. The fact that you exist and are successful is as devastating a blow to the black community as Iggy Azalea and Miley Cyrus. Regardless of how you feel or how you act in the context of a white supremacist society, you are no better than either of them. I am so sorry, but that is the way it is. I thought that white privilege was okay. Bravo. Really. But no hurt lyrics and no genuine black voiceovers are ever going to change reality. You have to understand that by merely existing in our spaces, you damage them, often irreparably. This has nothing to do with you. It's a consequence of a white supremacist society. Anything a white person does in a space for people of color will be considered superior by default. You're lucky that you're good at it, but that isn't always a prerequisite. White mediocrity is often prized above black excellence. The fact is, rap and hip hop might be lost to black voices forever, eventually. You know, as the genre grows more accessible and more commercial, you know, the space for black rappers will run thin, you know, in favor of more palatable, more white faces. It's already happening. It's already happening. But I don't think you should quit. I don't think you should do anything that you don't want to do because Macklemore, you can't fix anything. There is nothing that you can do. But you need to know how very little you actually know. Because you'll never understand what it feels like to know that no matter what you do, society will almost always choose black or Asian or Latino because they're black or Asian or Latino. I know what that feels like. I know that if I wrote scripts for a white handsome actor, maybe someone who looks a little bit like you, to recite on YouTube, I'd have a lot more subscribers than I have now. Probably even with the same content. You'll never know what it feels like to spend all the money you earn, to live in a nice neighborhood, to be safe from the violence in your old neighborhood, but know that even still, you dare not take a walk at night because violence follows you, because the society you must live in says that you are an embodiment of violence. Even if you talk about it, march with us and love us and protect us, you can never, never be us. You're safe and free to do as you please. We're not. In a way, and it may sound a little bit dramatic, but in a way, we're still slaves. And I know I probably sound bitter. And you know what? Maybe I am a little bit bitter. But it comes from a place of hurt and knowing that society can do better. But in the end, what does your introspection actually mean in the face of all of that? Have a nice day.